Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the IB Odyssey podcast. My name is Noorali, and I'm the host, and I'm going to be discussing a very important topic today, in my opinion, which I think is so crucial because if you don't know how to, do this one thing, you kind of are going to really fumble your grades up, in my opinion, again, just in my opinion. But so today we're going to be discussing effective study techniques for IB students. Okay. So I have about 15 in total techniques that we're going to be going over. And so one thing I just want to say is that from personal experience, I've been doing MYP since PYP, and this doesn't really necessarily apply to only MYP. It can apply to, for example, like AP courses or O levels, A levels, all different streams of education. It's very, very important to understand how you yourself need to study, because one thing that's going to work for you is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And if you don't study properly and more effectively, you're not going to really understand concepts. You're not really going to grasp the main meaning of what you're learning and why it's important. For example, we're going to be discussing this in the upcoming points as well, but again, for example, like a subject like psychology, right? It's very content heavy. I've heard there are about 200 case studies. That's absolutely insane, and there are 20-25 mark questions. Don't quote me on it, but that's something I've heard from my friends who take psychology. So it's a very tedious subject to study for, and if you don't have yourself organized, you're not really going to perform well. So today, that's why I'm making this podcast, so the people who struggle with this issue, and I also struggled with this, they can actually, improve on how they can study more effectively and efficiently. So let's just dive into it now. So the first tip is active recall. So this technique, it involves in actively retrieving information from memory rather than just simply rereading or reviewing whatever notes you've made. And also, of course, make notes, very important. Examples of this could include self-quizzing, flashcards, summarizing key concepts without, looking at the material. One thing I'm going to keep on saying throughout this podcast episode is that you should have a whiteboard, or even if you have a desk that you study on, and if it has have tables have mirrors on it, well, not mirrors, but glass on it, sorry. Take a white or not white, but a temporary marker, and just kind of write concepts on it, write acronyms or whatever is going to help you, and then you can later erase it and then look back at the material to see if you got it right or wrong. Looking back at the example of flashcards, sorry, what the heck. For flashcards, what you can do is one side can have the answer, obviously, and the other can have, whatever the question is. So that can also work, for example, for marking schemes. Let's say there's this question which is for 9 marks, then you can write bullet points, this is how you have to start, and stuff like that, or just the key components of that answer that really need to be there, which could be subject specific vocabulary or something along the lines. Next tip is spaced repetition. Now that is to review the material at space intervals over time, because this can enhance your long-term retention. I, for example, have absolutely no retention, so I really need to do it. I keep joking, but I give an exam, right, and the second the exam's over with and I've turned my paper and it's all just flown out of my mind and I can just not remember anything. That's a joke I made, but retention problems can be very serious, because again, some subjects are just very content heavy. And for example, if you're in DP, right, you have 6 subjects and you have to give 6 exams. Unless you're taking one of the arts, then you're lucky. But even then, you have a lot of studying to do and a lot of memorizing, a lot of just understanding concepts. So I think this would really help people out who have an issue and a trouble of remembering stuff. So you can use the space repetition technique, and you could also use a software which is called SRS, and you can create a study schedule, or you could use it to review material regularly. So I think that's very helpful. People can also use, they can make Pinterest boards or use Notion to kind of make, studying, making to-do lists a bit more mentally stimulating. I think Notion is great for that, and Pinterest in particular would be really good for just like kind of getting yourself into the mood per subject. You could just like make a Pinterest board with like every subject and its aesthetic, and it can kind of just like force you to study because like, oh, the setting is so cool. Like just romanticize the subject even if you don't like it. I should do that with maths. It might actually help me. To continue, the third tip is a bit obvious, but I just want to enforce it because I think it's very important nonetheless. It is mind mapping. See, through mind mapping, you can create visual diagrams that organize your information in a very hierarchical way, and it can be surrounded around a particular central topic or the concept which you're studying. This technique can also help with understanding relationships between the ideas and also improving your memory recall. Again, back to linking it with the spaced repetition technique. So again, you could get a whiteboard and you could make mind maps there, and it'll be so much more helpful for you to study that way. So I really think this is great. Another thing you could do is if you have like an app like Procreate, you could make digital diagrams there and you can save them. You could make them by hand and in a hard copy, and you could save them in a particular file. So that works. Okay, so my fourth tip is the Feynman technique, which is you teaching the material to someone. This could be imaginary or real. You could literally, like, if you have a sibling, you could just, get them and be like, sit down here, I'm going to teach you stuff, just so that I can actually learn the stuff in return. So basically, this technique, it helps to identify gaps in understanding, and it also helps to reinforce learning through active explanation. This is what people say in every, I think a lot of teachers say this, and I really agree. When you're writing something in your exam, make sure you explain it so well that assume that I'm so sorry for the background noise. My neighbors are absolutely feral. Okay, so basically, make sure you write everything in such great detail that when the examiner is reading it, they, just imagine the examiner knows nothing and just explaining this to someone who has no idea about what you're saying. That way, you're really gonna not only get grades, but you're gonna learn the concept and the information in such a way that you automatically apply it in that form on the exam day. So that's like, hitting two birds with one stone. So that, I think, is such a great technique, and I think it's really helpful for a lot of people. Next up, chunking. So I know this sounds funny, just stay with me here though. Break down the large amounts of information into smaller and manageable chunks or categories. This can help make complex material easier to understand and also to easily remember. This will be so helpful for the content-heavy subjects against just psychology and the 3 sciences, especially for, I think, bio. I personally took bio, so I could say that it's very content-heavy, and sometimes it can get a bit technical and a bit confusing. So breaking it down can really help, and you can also break the information down into different days. For example, you want to talk about lipids and fatty acids in one day. The other day you could talk about cells and the organisms and stuff like that. So that, I think, would be very helpful and beneficial for people. Okay, next up, intervalled practice. Now, what this means is you mix different types of problems or subjects during a study session rather than focusing on one topic at the same time. Interleaving it enhances your learning by promoting greater cognitive flexibility, so it helps you transfer the information in a more effective way. You could do this, and I think it's really helpful, especially studying for the SAT, which I've been doing these days. You could, mix it up. You could do English for a little bit, then you could do math, then you could do English, then you could do math. You could change it up again and again so that your mind doesn't get tired of this one subject. What some people say is one day they'll study for math, the other they'll study for English. And that's just how they study, One completely dedicated to this one particular subject. And I personally don't agree with it. I don't think it works for me. I think it does work for a lot of people, just not for me. I need to mix it up, or else I just kind of lose my mind into one subject. After a particular period of time, I'm just not very mentally active with that subject. So I take a break, do something else, and that way I'm more productive when I come back to it. Even if in the same day, after an hour or two, I come back to the same subject, it's much more mentally stimulating for me to study it then because I had a proper break. and I was able to do something else and be productive as well. So that's also very beneficial. So just, make sure whatever you do, you're not overwhelming yourself. The purpose of this podcast episode is to help people understand themselves a bit better and to try out different things to see if it works or not. Like, I've tried stuff, it didn't work, and I tried stuff and it did work. So again, I hope this experience is kind of it will be rewarding in the end. Believe me, once you crack the perfect studying techniques, you're just going to be able to enjoy the process because you can see yourself make progress, which I think is kind of what we all want to see at the end of the day. Academic validation. Okay, now on to the 8th technique. This is called dual coding. So combine verbal and visual information by associating text with relevant images or diagrams. This technique, it basically helps to engage multiple, cognitive processes and can help also enhance memory retention. I personally use this and I think it's great. For example, if you're studying economics or business and you're discussing profits, right? And there's a case study and they're discussing this one firm and they were making abnormal profits. Let's say we're studying economics, they were making abnormal profits and then they were making losses or something. So in my mind, I would make an arrow shooting up and an arrow shooting down to kind of, stay on track with what the case study is saying. Because how when you're reading something but you're not paying attention, so this is how I kind of study and read something and pay attention and kind of am keeping up with it. So I think that's so helpful, and this is also really good for people who study sciences and also for environmental systems and societies. For ESS, this is very helpful because all this information, it's okay, this is what I think with some subjects. Humanities, you can kind of use your own logic and kind of write stuff even if it's not necessarily in, let's say, your cookbook. What am I saying, cookbook? I've been doing this competition and my product's a cookbook. So my cookbook's been mine all the time, so sorry. But for example, sciences and environmental studies, they're basically, you can't make up stuff, but in subjects like business, you kind of can, it can work. So making diagrams and associating it with whatever you're learning and a concept can actually really help. And I think, again, back to the mind map technique, it is very beneficial for you to learn things that way because otherwise you're just going to forget and it can get really hard to understand. But of course, visualizing isn't for everyone, and it is for some people. So, okay, so the 9th technique is association technique. So you can create associations or mnemonic devices to others to help remember other information. This could also help involve creating acronyms or visualizing. This kind of interlinks to some of the techniques we've talked about before, but again, this is going to really help put stuff into your brain and let it be there, retention. Association is really helpful for acronyms and stuff especially, so you should definitely check that out. On to the next one. So this is obviously the most obvious one, and this is for us to do active note-taking during our lectures. So instead of passively transcribing lectures or readings, engage with the material by summarizing the key points. If you guys you might not know this, but there's this thing called Cornell note-taking sheets. It's basically a type of it's a paper, and they have organized in such a way that you could write key points in one place, you can write the main notes in another place, and at the very bottom you can write your summary of whatever's on the page. Check that out. It is so helpful and it's so amazing. That is such a great resource to have. So for note-taking and active note-taking, this can be very useful. And also you can make connections between concepts through active note-taking and asking questions. I think asking questions is so important. Usually in subjects you're not necessarily good at, you get scared from asking questions because you're like, I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want my friends to make fun of me. But trust me, it's much more important to lock in that grade, and you should ask questions. Even if your teachers have office times or they're free after class or whatever, you should go to them, you should ask them if they could help you after school. The more help you get when you're really going through it in a particular subject, the more it's gonna, benefit you in the longer run. So definitely be attentive in class, and also, try not to be so absent and try to be really present. Okay, I have like a sub tip with this tip. With the consent of your teacher, okay, like ask them if it's all right and if they are okay with it. If you're allowed to take your phone or similar device and with the consent of your teacher, what you could do is you could record the lecture on like the voice memos app on your phone or whatever device you can take, and then when you go home you can revise that lecture. So I think that could also be very helpful for people, because for example you zone out or you had a very bad headache in class, you'll have the recording and you can kind of just go home and go through it. Or if you're trying to solve a, let's say, math problem and you don't understand a concept, then you can be like, what did the teacher say in class today? Let me just pull up our recording and just see. So yeah, that could be very helpful. On to the 11th tip. Now this is called simulations and practical application. So you could use simulations, case studies, or real-world examples to apply, your theoretical concepts and deepen the understanding through practical implications. This might not be very helpful for the STEM kids, even though it could apply in particular cases. But for people who are doing humanities, such as economics and business and like political sciences, this could be so helpful. And I say this is very helpful because real life implications in these type of subjects are what also help you gain points, especially for like subjects like global politics, economics and business, and also environmental systems and societies. You could get extra points for actually connecting whatever concept you've learned to a real life example. This is going to really help you score better, and also it's going to help you understand what you're studying, because whatever we study, there are actual real life implications of it. Well, memes people make, it's like, oh, another day without using the quadratic theorem. So maybe not everything, but again, we're sticking to the humanities, not to the STEM. But again, just go to like a newspaper or something, on an online newspaper. If you're on Instagram, which everyone is, follow up New York Times or the Wall Street Journal. You'll understand a lot, not only about the world, which is good for your own personal awareness, but also you could actually apply whatever you've learned and heard in the news to whatever thing you're studying. So that is something that's going to help you score much better in your exams. Okay, I'm done with this point. Sorry, I made it a bit longer, but this next one, I think it's a bit controversial. Well, not controversial, but I feel like some people might really not agree to it, and that is group studying. So basically, in group studying, which is very explanatory, you collaborate with your peers, this could be your friends, of course, and you discuss and explain concepts to each other, you solve problems together, and you quiz each other. So basically, explaining concepts to each other can also help to reinforce and understand the whatever information you're learning much better. So this could be very helpful. Although it is quite a distraction. If you're studying with like your best friend, you're probably just gonna like talk and like gossip or something instead of studying. So again, be a bit wise with this move. But to make this a bit more fun and actually more effective and productive, what you can do is, let's say you have a friend group of like 4 people. Every week, one friend could take a turn and they could make a Kahoot quiz, and then you could quiz each other with it, right? Like, you all play the Kahoot together, and that could also help to reinforce the concepts and to learn the information. And this is great for self-reflection, because while you're answering the quiz, you'll understand what you know and what you don't know. So it's also really productive in that aspect, and it makes it more fun to study, because once you're with someone you actually like spending time with, even the worst subject can kind of actually be very fun to study. So this is a great way of actually studying with your friends and it being productive. Okay, this is the third last tip, and that is to exercise and to bring some movement in your life. Now, this, I know some people will be like, what are you on about? And let me tell you, I have done this. I don't do it anymore, so I'm a hypocrite, but I have done this before, and it really does help. So basically, you should incorporate physical activity into study breaks or into your study sessions. you could exercise because it can not only help improve your mood, but it helps to also improve your concentration and your cognitive functions. Story time now. So one day last year, I worked out. I did some cardio for 20 minutes. I took a shower. I started studying maths, and I actually, when I was like doing the problems, I was actually like able to concentrate properly without being like, what am I studying? Like, what is this? Like, what do I do after this? Because like math is a very technical subject. You need to understand which formula to use, what's the next step, how do you solve this further. So once I had exercised for about 20-ish minutes and I had a shower and I felt fresh, I was able to concentrate much better because once you study, your endorphins and similar brain chemicals release, which are, very beneficial for you, and you have blood circulation, which again, very good for you. I took bio for 2 years. I cannot help you with the biological implications and the biological benefits of this, but search it out and let me know as well. But really, all jokes aside, I would so suggest everyone to do cardio or like high intensity workouts for 15 to 20 minutes. I know during the weekdays it can be hectic with like school and tuitions, but on the weekends at least, because on the weekends you have more time, we can also study more on the weekends. So this would really help with, just also taking care of yourself physically. Okay, now this is my second last tip. This is very self-explanatory again, sleeping and resting. I'm someone who wishes I could sleep my whole life, but, unfortunately that's not possible. But it's very important to make sure that you get 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And it's also like scientifically, I think, proven that taking naps is really good. You should take power naps whenever you feel absolutely exhausted to just, rejuvenate yourself and to also just, help kind of feel a bit more fresh and awaken. So sleeping well and napping can just really be a game changer because people are like, oh, I'll just drink coffee and pull all-nighters. And I know a lot of you out there feel attacked personally because you do this. But trust me, that's not going to be as effective for you, especially during the exam season. Like, if you have your confidence in your sleep, you're so going to feel much better. Believe me. Because if you're like sleep deprived and just tired and your mindset is, my neighbors, swear to God, okay. But if you're, going into the exam with 3 hours of sleep, just done with life, just want to get over with the exam, you're not going to do as well. Because you're like, my priority isn't scoring well on the exam. Like, it is, but it's the second priority. Right now, I just want to get over with it. And that is not going to help you score better. So try to make sure you can get 7 to 8 hours of sleep every day. Definitely work your schedule around it. You know why? Because once you hit that benchmark, you're going to feel so much better. And it's really good for you to, sleep well and feel better and rested because it helps to increase mental rejuvenation and it also helps, memory consolidation. But also helps you feel much better when you wake up instead of, Okay, basically to wrap up this point, just sleep your 7 to 8 hours. Okay, it's very important. Okay, this is the last tip. And actually I have like 3 tips after that. But they're not really like tips. They're just like bonus things you can do. But the actual last and the 15th tip is reflection and metacognition. So reflect on your learning strategies, monitor your progress, and also adjust your study techniques based on what works best for you, which we discussed lightly at the start of this podcast episode. Develop, awareness on your own learning process and make like intentional choices to improve effectiveness because some people are fast learners and some are slow learners. The pace someone else is going on doesn't necessarily is going to work for you. So you have to really sit down and see what works best for you and what you're going to be able to do better at and kind of go on with, that type of strategy and that positive mindset. Studying can be very hard. Like, I feel very demotivated most of the time studying because, I'm not, the brainiac of the class. I'm personally like an average student at best, but if you don't have that mindset, then maybe I can achieve that goal that I want to. You're probably not going to get even close to it. But if you try to have that positive mindset and you try to motivate yourself, and you try to work for it, then you're probably gonna get somewhere close, if not there exactly. Again, what's gonna happen is gonna happen, but you can try to change the odds in your favor. So this one I think is very important, of course. And now on to kind of the last three not semi, but like sub tips I have. Small little tips that I think can be really helpful. Try to only do 5 tasks in one day so you can be more productive without feeling overburdened with too much work. I personally think this is such a great one because usually you make a to-do list, right? And you're like, I'm gonna make a to-do list, I'm gonna be organized today, I'm gonna like the 3 a.m. motivation, I'm gonna change my world around. Well, I think that's a great mindset, believe me, but you should only have up to 5 tasks to do. This could be, making a presentation, writing an essay. There could be big tasks, but again, you could organize in such a way that you have small and big tasks mixed every day, so you're not burdening yourself. And because you won't be overwhelmed with the feeling of, oh my god, I have so much to do today, you'll actually be able to do the small little things, the small 5 things or the big 5 things, but with more effectiveness, with more efficiency and more productivity. So do try to do that out. I think that's going to be really good. I personally use it and it helps me quite a lot. Next is try and ask around with your friends and look up study techniques online in order to find what best works for you. I know this video's main purpose is that, but still you should kind of go around and look beyond just to see what else am I missing out on, because you're obviously gonna find great stuff out there as well. I hope this podcast episode is very helpful, and you're probably gonna hear something from your friend, and that'll be so cool. And you'll be like, why don't I do that? Why don't I use this particular app to study, or something along the lines. Okay, last one. Watch this great YouTube channel. It's called Faye Films. It's on YouTube, of course. Self-explanatory YouTube channel, but the account name is at FAYEFILMS, so Faye Films. This is a great YouTube channel, and she's a great YouTuber for topics such as studying routines and study techniques. And since I think 9th grade, since I might be 4, I've been watching her videos. And this do 5 tasks a day thing, I actually learned that from her channel. And I think this is going to be so helpful for you guys, because she also has videos such as how to study for a subject in a month if you've been procrastinating the whole year, or in 3 days how to just get yourself to at least pass the exam. These type of videos are so beneficial for obviously all the procrastinators out there. Me. But again, do check her out. I also mentioned her in my IB resources podcast episode, which is the first podcast episode, and do check that one out just so you can also find great IB resources. And I think that's pretty much it for today. I hope you guys really enjoyed all of these tips, and I hope that you try them out. If you do let me know. And if you have any questions, if you want to send any suggestions, you can comment down below. You can go to the Instagram of this podcast, which is IB Odyssey Podcast on Instagram. And I will be looking forward to hearing from you guys. And have a great day. And I really hope that this helps you be more efficient and more productive with your studying. Okay, bye-bye.